report. Hanging at the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. For your latest news in high school sports, tune in to the fish report. Don't need no bed, don't need no pull. When you tune in to the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. You got Craig and TK and FFT tuned in at the fish report.
Coming to you live from Studio F in Russia, Ohio. It's the Fish Report Live Show with your hosts, Craig Fissinger and Ken Francis.
Tune in to the fish report.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Fish Report Live. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Craig Fissinger. That is Ken Francis. We're your host. You know who's back in our sound room? It's TK and Heavy D. Can't wait to talk to them a little bit later this morning, Ken. And out in Studio R, I know Covey's out there this morning. And Daniel, he oversleep or what?
I don't know. You know, last week he was over there eating his breakfast, his bowl of cereal. He got here a little late, but boy, he was eating his breakfast, which I was glad to see. You know, a big kid like that, young, needs a good breakfast in him. This week he's not even here. So Covey's out there all by himself. But good morning, Covey. I'm sure he'll be able to handle it all by himself.
Well, we'll carry on this morning without him. And Ken, we're going to talk a lot of sports here this morning. Some volleyball, some football, a little bit of everything, huh?
Yeah, we are, Craig. A lot of stuff going on this time of year, Craig. The temperatures are cooling off. It's a beautiful Thursday morning. And, you know, as those temperatures come down, Craig, so do the times on the cross-country course. None other than one Emma Watcke from Minster. Craig, she right now has the fastest time in Ohio. She ran a 17:50, which is just a blazing fast time last week at the Centerville Night Lights race. Really looking forward to talking to the Minster star that leads the Wildcats. That's Emma Watcke here in just a few minutes. But again, Craig, beautiful weather out there. It's great Friday night football weather. The golfers are having a lot of fun. We had the golf sectionals yesterday, so we'll talk about them in a little bit. And just a lot of stuff to cover for everybody tonight, this morning.
Yeah, you're right about those cool temperatures in the cross-country course. I got a chance to get to a couple different places last weekend. Got over to Versailles, watched some runners over there, then went to that Centerville race Saturday night. You know, as the temperatures go down, so do those times, and it was all over the state, I noticed last weekend. So that time of year, looking forward to all that. But as you mentioned, a little bit of golf going on right now. Hard to believe we're talking postseason already. We had some sectional boys, sectional girls, and Ken, I know a lot of local kids moving on. What do we have?
Yeah, we did, Craig. And on the boys' side, Craig, the Fort Loramie Redskins, a lot of Shelby County there. Fort Loramie, Bockens, Jackson Center, and Lehman, as well as individual from Russia, Drew Sherman, all moving on to out of the Beechwood sectional to the districts next week, Craig. Just some phenomenal golf being played by the local kids. And, you know, they'll be challenged next week anytime you get to that district level in golf when there's only 3 divisions. You know, those teams come up from Cincinnati typically are very strong in golf. But we'll see once. I'm sure the teams from around here, they'll be ready to challenge.
Yeah, of course, they're running, you said, at the district at the Beaver Creek Golf Course over there, golf club. And, you know, there's no regionals in golf, so you go from district straight to state, so going to have to shoot some great scores. I think the top 3 teams, top 3 individuals maybe this year move on to state. So it's going to be interesting. You got to be awful good to get out of district.
That's for sure.
All right, well, check out those girls, too. I know the girls were in action yesterday in the area, and who's moving on there, Ken?
Well, Craig, a couple locals from Anna. We've got
Bree Cuck.
Bree Cuck from Anna and Fort Loramie. What's her name?
Bullen, the
Bullen
girl. Yeah,
the Bullen shot a phenomenal score of 86 or 88 yesterday. So she did very well. So Versailles also moving on there as a team. So congratulations to those area golfers on the girls' side that are moving on in Division 2.
Of course, they're playing down at Pipestone down there, and same thing. Top 3 teams, top 3 individuals moving on. Same story there. Got to be awful good to get on the state.
That's for sure. And there's only 2 divisions in girls golf, so makes it even tougher.
All right. Well, let's change gears and talk a little football. Always excited to talk some football, and for that, we're going to go out to Studio R and check in with Covey. And Covey going solo this morning. It looks like.
Good morning over there, Covey. How you doing this morning?
I think Daniel gave up his career in sports maybe for acting and dancing around maybe like a ballerina with the senior class. So I guess I'm just flying solo tonight, but I think it'll be a little better for me.
I know he had play practice last night, so perhaps it was a late night for him. A little tough getting up this morning.
Could be, I'm not sure, but yeah, those seniors, they're busy this time of year between golf and volleyball and cross country and play practice. There's a lot going on in there, Kobe.
Yeah, there is. I experienced a lot of that last year myself.
All right, Kobe, well, listen, let's talk some football. Always excited to talk about the MAC. I think last week we featured a couple games as well as one in the CCC. I believe you and Kearns nailed all of your picks there. Let's talk about it again this week, starting to take shape a little bit there in the MAC. And thoughts on that, and give me a couple feature games you're looking at this Friday night.
Yeah, today on Thursday, it's a lot of preparing a lot of film, a lot of walkthroughs here for teams. First game we want to highlight, Versailles at Anna. Should be a very good game. I know I've had a bad history of picking against the Rockets, but I'm going to go that the Rockets will win against Versailles. Versailles had a nice shutout win over Delphus St. John's, 27-0, and I expect Anna to pull this one out about 35-7 over the Tigers. Another good game we got going on is Marion at St. Henry. St. Henry's sitting at 4-1, but on the outside looking in on the playoff spectrum right now, be a very tough game for them to win. I'm going to go with the Flyers here. The Flyers were down 20-7 to Anna, but the Flyers rattled off the next 37 points. Fort Recovery at Parkway. I'm going to take the Panthers here in an upset. The Panthers kept it tight with Minster. I had them tied 21-21. I think the Panthers will get another solid win. New Bremen at Coldwater. New Bremen putting together an up-and-up season, but I'm going to have to go with the Cavaliers here. And then Minster at Delphus. Delphus really struggled against a Versailles team that may be a little down this year. So I'm going to have to go with the Wildcats. I still think the Wildcats are the favorite in D7, even though you see teams like you might see that Minster beat Laramie early in the season, but Laramie's on top in Division 7. And I think Laramie and Minster are the best two teams in that Division 7 region, even though Minster beat Laramie. But Laramie has 2 wins over Cincinnati Madera and Miami East, who are Division 5 teams, which gives them a lot of computer points, which puts them at the top of the region. I think Laramie will stay at the top of the region. They play Twin Valley South this week. I think Laramie should win again, advance to 5-1, and probably come out with that number 1 seed, and eventually will be on a collision course with Minster sometime in the playoff.
That's good stuff over there, Kobe. And I got to agree with you on some of them picks. When you look at those max standings and you see Parkway sitting there at 1-4 overall, and they had a really nice win. They've played some teams really close. Just the strength of that league is just phenomenal.
Yeah. You may put them in a different conference. You could put them maybe in the NWCC or even the CCC, and they might come out 7-3, 8-2, and maybe going to the playoffs. But you see, they're on the outside outside looking in, and in terms of playoffs and just in the MAC in general. And it's tough for them. But I think their new coach and everything, who's had some college and even NFL coaching experience, is really turning that program around, and they're going somewhere now.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a bold pick when I heard you make that prediction, and I think I could hear the yells coming from Fort Recovery as well when you predicted that one. But you're right, very good coach over there, a coach that we actually had a chance to stand next to and meet there at when Parkway was playing softball in the regionals there against Bradford. So got a chance to visit with him at that game, and I think that maybe Parkway's on the way to turning things around. Fort Recovery probably going to have a lot to say about that though on Friday night.
Yeah, it'll be a very good game, and I'd also like, even though I know we'll talk a little more volleyball later in the show, like to highlight that big win by the Russia Raiders last night over the Anna Rockets. Great comeback by the Raiders. In that it was a hot box there over at the launch pad, but just a very good game that TK and I called, and it was very good. And the Raiders are one step closer to that big SCAL title.
Well, I got to give you and TK credit, Kobe. You guys did a phenomenal job calling the game. I personally listened to the 5th set. Just an exciting overall match, and you guys did a great job. And appreciate you guys going over there and taking the time to call the game.
Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned a hot box over there. I guess Anna's under a little bit of construction right now. No air conditioning. Is that the story?
Yeah, I didn't even know they were going under renovation until TK and I went over there, and they had fans blasting on each corner of the gym. Excuse me. In each corner of the gym. So we actually sat up in the top of the student section there with no table, We struggle with connection from time to time, but it ended up working out. And from what I saw, the statistics is we got a lot of viewers in, so I was very pleased with that. And it was a great Raider win.
Well, I'd like to put you in that same seat, perhaps maybe this basketball season, right behind that Rowdy Rocket section there. I think that would be a good seat for you, maybe come this winter. What do you think?
It wasn't very much of a Rowdy Rocket section last night. I'm usually used to going in the launch pad and it being very loud, but it was a little more quiet there last night. But once basketball season comes and the temperatures fall down a little bit, I think you'll see the Rocket student section heat up. The launch pad's always a tough place to play.
Well, from my past experience, Kobe, if you're going to be sitting anywhere close to Ronnie Rocket during a boys' basketball game, you're actually going to be on the floor because Ronnie is usually in the corner guarding the three-point shot on our fade offense.
Yeah, Ronnie Rocket is everywhere on the floor. Leaves a blazing trail. You see that little fire coming out from the end of his suit, leaving a blazing trail on the floor there. He definitely does defend that corner three.
Yes, he does.
All right, great stuff, Kobe. Thanks for that. Look forward to talking to you again next week when hopefully Kearns is back by your side. All right,
Dang it.
Ken, I got one thing. We're talking football here, and I got one thing I want to get off my chest. I know that you got the computer ratings coming out this time of the year, finally coming out. I think we're in week 2 maybe now of those. I enjoy looking at those. Gives you, tells you who's going to be in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you got the state poll coming out, and I don't quite understand what the significance of the state poll is. My opinion, who cares about the state poll? All I care about is those ratings and who's going to get in the playoffs. I don't care if Fort Laramie's number 1 in Region 28 right now, and somebody ranks them, number 10 in the state. What do I care about that? What's the significance of that?
There's absolutely no significance whatsoever, and I agree with you, Craig. It gives the writers, the AP writers across the state of Ohio, something to do and something to vote on. So, other than the fact that it gives these high school teams something to chat about, it gives the writers something to do. It's really irrelevant. It's the same thing with cross country, and as far as that goes, basketball, baseball, and all the other sports. But, on the other side of that, it does give the local schools, the kids, the coaches, the fans, something to say, hey, we're ranked number 1 in Ohio, we're ranked number 4 in the state, it's another media credential that the papers and the social media can go to network with and say, hey, we've got our own poll. These computer polls might determine who's getting in the playoffs, but here's who we feel is the best team in Ohio.
Yeah, I guess it encompasses the whole state, and it's not just whereas I'm looking at the regions and who's ranked where, but. Yeah, I just don't care about those polls, and I do care about the ratings. I want to see who's in line to get in the playoffs. But the polls, I turn the page when I see those things.
Well, one thing about those computer rankings, and they can get a little bit skewed because when you take a conference that is very heavily weighted at the top, say like Fort Laramie's conference, for example, the CCC, I feel the bottom. Other than maybe Fort Laramie and perhaps Miami East, I feel the rest of that league, honestly, would not win a game in the MAC. But when they all play each other in the CCC, somebody has to win. So that gets Fort Laramie computer points. That gets Miami East computer points. And I'm not taking anything away from the strength of the schedule of the Redskins. However, it is very easy for them to accumulate points versus a team like Minster, who may end up going 5-5 or 6-4 in the regular season and struggle against a lot of these tough MAC schools.
Good point. You're exactly right on that. But it is what it is. It's what we've got to work with right now. Mm-hmm. So we're having fun with it. That's for
right.
Sure. All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a short break, but stay right there. When we come back, we're going to talk some more fall sports, including speaking with a state champion in Minster's Emma Watcke.
In the motherland, you were born with heart, raised on pride. This vinegar runs through your bloodline. Loaded, bruised, and slain. Pride in this name.
And welcome back to the second half of Fish Report Live. Before the break, we were talking all kinds of fall sports. We were talking a little golf, boys and girls golf, some football, a little volleyball, Ken. Going to change gears now and talk some cross country. And our next guest is actually a standout cross country runner over at Minster High School. Last weekend at Centerville's star-studded Saturday Night Lights, Ken, she ran a time of 17:50, which, as you mentioned earlier, is a blazing time. It vaulted her from number 7 in the state of Ohio to number 1 in D3 girls. She also happens to be last year's state champion. Joining us on the program now is junior Emma Watcke. Emma, welcome to Fish Report Live.
Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, congrats on a great season so far, and that we just mentioned that blazing time you ran last Saturday night over there at Centerville. You know, Emma, that race there had a kind of a unique start time. I believe you started at 9:15, which is really late and kind of hard, I would think, for any runner to adjust to. Maybe not so hard for you, I don't know. But what are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on that, again, that star-studded Centerville race in general?
Yeah, so I love racing at night. We usually do like a lot of, or not usually, but we do a lot of meets and track that are at night. So it's not too hard to get used to, but I definitely love racing at Centerville. I look forward to it like every season, and it's just a great atmosphere with great competition.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of fast girls there, and a lot of races going on, and it was fun to watch you compete, as well as a lot of the other stars from across the state, and a lot of them from out of state as well. So Emma, so for our viewers out there that aren't familiar with your Minster team this year, again, very talented again this year, ranked number 1 in the state of Ohio right now. Can you tell us who's been running, maybe let's say in your top 7 or 8 for the most part so far this season?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of girls that have returned from last year's state team. So we have Caitlin Albers, Gwen Meyering, Mackenzie Bowman, Ella Boat, Madeline Magato, and Janae Hoying returning from last year's team. And then we also have Rachel Kitzmiller, who's a junior, who's really improved this year and is breaking into our top 7 and 8, and same with Emma Meyer, who's a freshman.
Emma, hi, this is Ken Francis, and let's talk a little bit about that Centerville race. You know, you came into the race ranked 7th in the state of Ohio, and you came out of that race ranked number 1. But you know, the competition in that race was just phenomenal. You know, it helped set the pace throughout that race for you. I think you finished like 7th or 8th in that race individually, which is phenomenal with the competition that it played out. But did you feel yourself building up to this race, or was it you know, the fact that the cooler temperature maybe, or was it you're getting in better shape, or was it the competition? What propelled you to a 17:50, which is just blazing fast?
Yeah, so definitely my training has kind of stepped up this year, which is starting to pay off. Yeah, so, and then definitely the amazing competition there, and it was great weather, and, you know, we went out at a great pace, so that really helped me to get off to a good start, and then just keep trying to catch people in front of me to get that fast time.
Emma, last week we talked to a golfer, a great golfer out of Botkins High School. He talked a lot about the mental part of the game. And cross country is very similar. There's a mental aspect that you have to go into every race with, that you got to know you're going to do well. You got to have self-confidence. Explain to our listeners this morning about the mental aspect of running a cross country race, especially when you're out front so often like you are.
Yeah, definitely. You want to go in, you know, too confident, but not too confident. And yeah, so I definitely get you know, a little nervous for races, but I think that really helps me to, you know, run well and Yeah, so definitely just staying positive throughout the race. And I know a trick that really helps me is that, I focus on 10 seconds if I'm hurting, just get to this spot and then see where I'm at and kind of regroup myself to keep running fast.
And speaking of the mental part of the game, I want to mention I read a newspaper article back at the beginning of the season that it was the fall preview, and it had a little capsule in there on Minster cross country, and it talked to your coach, got some quotes from your coach, Jessie Magato over there. And there was one quote that she had in the paper, or I guess a couple things she said that I want to bring up. I actually talked to her about this earlier this season, but we've got it up on our monitor right now, and she's talking about you girls, and she says, get out there, run your best, and leave it on the course. How you place is not equal to who you are as a person or your self-worth. That's one thing I preach, to take that pressure away. You work hard and you want it, but in the end, that doesn't equate to who you are. I think that lets them just go out there and race. I absolutely love that quote. It might be one of my favorite things I've ever read about a coach saying. A lot of times when you read those articles, you get a lot of coach speak in there, but such an awesome quote. And, how fortunate did you feel to be running for a coach like that and in a program that has that type of approach?
Yeah, I'm so grateful to be running for such a great program and coach. And, she does really, preach us that it's all about being a better person. And as long as you're working hard and, putting in the time, it will be there. And so I definitely think that's important, not only for running, but also for a life skill and, just having such a great team. It's okay to have an off race, because those other girls will still be there to uplift you and stuff like that.
Emma, let's look forward into your schedule. This weekend, you're actually off this weekend, and it's kind of nice to have that mid-season break. Your next race is scheduled for Oktoberfest weekend when you run at the Coldwater Lions Invitational. Are you, as an individual, is this good for your body? Are you looking forward to the break this weekend?
Yeah, actually, we're it's kind of the opposite. We're not running Lions this year, and this weekend we're going to run at the Midwest Meet of Champions in Hilliard. So I'm looking forward to that, and it's going to be another great race with good competition, and it's always a fast course. So, yeah, actually, instead of running Lions, we're going to have a break. I think our varsity is just going to take off of Lions, so the junior high and JV will still be there, but yeah.
Emma, I'm familiar with that Midwest Meet of Champions over there in Columbus area. That's a phenomenal race as well, and to take Oktoberfest weekend off, I guess that's a good call by the coach there. So let's talk a little bit about, I realize you're only a junior, but, we like to talk to our high school athletes and say, hey, what's on deck for you after your high school running career? I know you got a long way to go in high school yet, but social media has, that possibly you visited the University of Michigan. Anything on the recruiting trail that you can share with our listeners out there that you might be able to give us a few hints of where Emma Watcke might be looking at in the future?
Yeah, so this summer I did look at a couple of places just to get a good idea of, what programs I want to look at, and not only athletically but also academically. So, I went out to the East Coast this summer and looked at a couple places, but I'm not going to worry about it too much until I'm out of cross country, but probably in the winter I'll start to think about it some more. So hopefully I can make a decision in the early signing period next fall.
Well, I think that's a great idea. You continue to enjoy your current cross country season, which has been full of success.
All right, Emma, listen, one more quick question and we'll let you go, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. And, I mentioned Coach Magato a little earlier, but another one of your coaches just happens to be your mom, and that's Molly Watcke. She was a pretty accomplished runner herself back in the day, I believe an All-American, as Ken just mentioned, Michigan. That's where she went to school at. As a matter of fact, I see she still runs competitively on occasion in some pretty big races around the country. So, be honest with me, if we put you and her on a road race and a 5K, can she hang with you?
Well, probably not for a 5K, but she could probably beat me in anything above it. But, yeah, it'd be pretty close. So.
Well, listen, Emma, that's good stuff. The Wildcat program over there, obviously traditionally extremely rich, and I'm sure you're proud to be a part of that success that they've got going. And, it's been going on for a long time. Coach Magato does a phenomenal job. So best of luck to you the rest of the season, and, to you and the Lady Wildcats, and Coach Magato also, who we've had on our show before as well. So great people over there. You guys work hard at it, and you deserve it. So best of luck, and thanks for being on our show.
Thank you.
All right, and that was Minster Junior Cross Country star and track star, Emma Watcke. All right, Ken, let's go back quickly to the sound room, check in with TK and Heavy D back there, talking about them a little earlier in the show. I know Covey was actually calling the game with you, TK, on, Tuesday night, I guess, over there at Anna. It was a good one over there, and it sounded like it was a little warm, but still very exciting to listen to you guys call that game.
It was a lot of fun. It was warm, and again, apologize for those listeners out there that had to put up with some technical difficulties early, but we got them straightened out in time for the Raider rally, as it was, and able to broadcast most of those sets and that great win. It was a lot of fun just to watch the momentum and watch that team gather themselves after playing, quite honestly, 2 poor sets to start things out, but a lot of fun. And the Raiders look like they're on a roll now, and we'll see what happens the rest of the season here.
All right, exciting stuff from them. And listen, we always come back to you every week to get our SCAL Star of the Week. I know you always got something interesting to say. Who you got this week?
Well, I'm going to go with a non-SCAL sport again, sticking with football, this time going up to that football juggernaut in Fort Laramie, the team that just keeps rolling out, winning season after winning season. Last week they played at Ansonia, and they rolled there 37-10, and Carter Mesher only ran 4 times for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he only caught 5 passes for 41 yards and another touchdown. So the young stud up there from Fort Laramie, I think the 3-star sport athlete, just keeping going there in football. So that team is continuing to roll. Looks like they're not going to much is not going to stop them the rest of the season. So we'll see how that plays out for them as they get to the playoffs.
Good stuff with that, TK, and good call with your SCAL Star of the Week. Heavy D, last week, we went to the Ask Heavy D mailbag, learned a little bit about the Washington Monument. Actually had a meeting I did earlier this week about going to Washington here in October, going with my 8th grade son. And I can't wait to see that Washington Monument to learn or to see what you taught us about last week. What do you got this week? I'm excited.
Man, I'll tell you what. Well, first off, I want to give a shout out to my godson, Drew Sherman, on making it out of Beechwood, playing at Beaver Creek next week. I taught him nothing about the game of golf. I'm a lot of fun in a scramble, but in a match like that, it's all of Drew's hard work, so go get him, Drew. I had a listener call in, text in a question a little bit early in the morning for this kind of subject, but Brad Raithman asked a question about what's my favorite bourbon, and if you follow Brad on Twitter, he's into day 25 of his 30 days of bourbon. Every day he drinks a different bourbon. He tweets about it and rates it, so I appreciate that. My favorite bourbon, I'll get to that in a second. A couple interesting facts about bourbon before we get to that. Number one, not every whiskey is considered to be bourbon. To be bourbon, you have to have certain requirements. Number one, 51% of the grain mixture has to be corn. So that's number one. Number two, it has to be aged in a new charred oak barrel for it to be considered bourbon. And finally, it's distilled to no more than 160 proof. So those are a couple criteria for it to be labeled as bourbon. And only bourbon by the government in the United States, only bourbon can be produced in the United States and marketed that way. So in Canada, if you want to label something as bourbon, it has to be made in the United States. A couple other fun facts. 95% of all bourbon is made in the state of Kentucky. And currently aging right now in the state of Kentucky is 5.3 million barrels
Whoa.
of bourbon. That's more than the population of Kentucky. So there's more barrels of bourbon in Kentucky than there are people. Go figure. Bardstown, Kentucky is the bourbon capital of the world. And one of my favorites, Brad, is Elijah Craig. It's a good economic choice for a good quality bourbon. I think you might have rated it 2 or 3 stars this month. Elijah Craig was actually known as the, maybe called the inventor of bourbon back in the day. He was a Baptist minister and needed a pole every now and then, or a belt. On the higher end, I'm going to go with Weller's bourbon. I sampled a couple glasses of Antique 107. It was right on the money. I appreciate Ken for bringing that to the party. So a little bit about bourbon, and there's a million kinds out there. You just got to try it and figure it out for yourself.
That's good stuff there, Heavy D.
Well, we're all adults here. We can talk bourbon.
Oh,
can't we?
absolutely we can.
Great stuff with that, Heavy D. Always enjoy listening to what you have to say, and this week we learned a little bit about bourbon.
That's right, and I always look forward to TK's Player of the Week. I always curious who he might pick, and I'm always in suspense who it might be.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks for that. And with that, it's going to wrap it up for us tonight morning. Looking forward to tonight's volleyball games. A lot of SCAL action going on there. And Ken, we want to say special thanks to our guest, Emma Watcke, for joining us on the show. Thanks to the viewers out there for tuning in. Ken and I and the crew will all be back again next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a great rest of the week and have a great day, everyone.
Hanging at the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond. For your latest news and high school sports, tune in to the fishing pond. Don't need no bed, don't need no pole when you tune in to the fishing pond. Hey.